To begin the process of a criminal investigation, the most essential element is pivotal: education. Discover what you can about the victims involved. Gather what information you can from any witness and keep notice of any initial withdrawal. What information is noteworthy? Prioritize this case to moralize your soul searching. Check out every member of the witness list. If they don't quite remember, you may hire a hypnotist. Crucial information that you go move on your case with, maybe use a polygraph, and for all you ask, and research the indicators scribbled in. Also see their backgrounds. Are there any unreliable criminal recidivists? Meanwhile, the crime scene should be thoroughly examined at every side. Your best bet is to dust for fingerprints and exercise till your back, head, arms, neck, and thighs hurt as you utilize tools to find the clues that best provides your ability to recognize and collect the tiny samples to check for fibers. Amongst them, any outliers, anything rare, anything that was not indigenous to the area there. Now, as for the bodies themselves, the autopsy is important to help. See what the toxicology report would tell. Ponder, could there be any accomplices? More than 2 types of DNA discovered? Could one suspect have handled the violent act and one was helping as a newcomer? Let's say there was vomit at the scene, far from the rest of it. The DNA of it was not the violent accomplice, based on the analysis evidence. Tell the attacker about his buddy being placed at the crime scene to hopefully get a confession. Hence, his forensic evidence of that is the barf remnants. Get it? I said his friend's sick. Evidence of that is the barf remnants. Different example. Let's say a death had suspicious timing which led to financial gain. As far back as a long time ago, with these ample claims, insurance money is always suspicious, and it's beneficiary a criminal sees the money from. Both meanings. Debt can be cumbersome. Consider an expert to perform a handwriting analysis. This will help you understand how the case balances. As it becomes clear on the insurance claim who actually did sign the name given on it as accurate, find out if this evidence will help with the trial for the big money obtained from the victim that was killed. See if the signatures are legit forgeries to help decide guilt. Another example, what if a landlord was killed by a firearm? No fingerprints or non-victim DNA, but the shell casings were picked up from the entire yard. Bring the possible murder weapon to a firearms expert. Get an idea of what you're facing. The expert compares the possible murder weapon with another make and model of a similar firearm for creating an examination side by side, testing the speed and locations of the ammo with more than one shot for bullet racing. Both meanings. The murder weapon best not be contested, as well as the crime scene best not be infected. Let's say the tenant was the killer, but they never committed a nefarious crime, no history of violence at all, but the gun was registered to be theirs, you find. To establish a reason for them to kill, you find out they can't afford to live at that residence. Before this incident, you describe them as someone literally nonviolent and compliant with paying for their home to be put in the simplest. Their insufficient funds made their brain control them in a new way, as they've always been nonviolent and such. If you're asking how, in other words, a mot different for them became too much. Both meanings, money and the violence together. Look at these crimes at all possible angles, linear or not, with timing of each event possibly tangled. If justice was a class and you were a student in the field being graded, and actual field work with real criminal takedowns was integrated, and you wanted to get your first feel for what it's like, find your first perpetrator and aim your stun gun to subdue them successfully. 3 people looking back at this, one pointing at the criminal, one pointing at the injury on the criminal, one pointing at you, best believe they will all say, "You got tased for justice." Triple meaning, to serve each of its functions. With some cases, possibly set up sting operations. Computer experts can find deleted files the hard drive takes in. Try to communicate with the suspect undercover for an incriminating detail. A lot of messages with them privately on the internet, so correspondence via email. Both meanings. Get them to speak candidly and off guard, to make your case against them look rock hard. Now here's a discourse on courts and trials, to prepare yourself for the wild. Initially, detectives with you will state your opinion, possibly debating, based on the likelihood of evidence combined with the statements they are making. Look at the case as a whole as you listen to the arrestee talk as well. What do you get? It's suspeculating the story. Both meanings, as a means of obtaining the truth before me. Look over the case file. Make sure the inculpatory and exculpatory evidence is submitted and understood to face trial. Don't you dare charge a suspect with the crime until you have a compendium of evidence. Gather your experts in all fields of study to aid and make sense of it. As for the crime itself, does it make sense or no sense at all? Who's truthful and who has incentive for fraud? Was it committed methodically or was it rushed? During any interrogation, you ought to see that lying comes. Did they touch their nose? Did they get flustered and blush? Did they stick to a scripted story that becomes their crutch? The interrogation is halted the moment that they ask for a lawyer. Legally, it must be stopped. Legal counsel will advise you on what to say and what not. Get it? What to say and what not? You must check every suspect for defensive wounds. Sometimes the cause of death is also the causal nexus to get the proof. Who has a motive, no matter how small, to commit the heinous crime? What would they most likely plead during the arraignment time? Even if they did the crime, they will tell the judge not guilty in a sense. In other words, what verdict are they going for? Not guilty, innocence. They may even have people to help them. Their lawyer could call a witness. If you fail to cross-examine them, they could alleviate all suspicion. Hopefully the right one gets convicted and they were properly charged. As long as you can prove beyond a reasonable doubt that there was intent at minimal to commit bodily harm.